But we flipped a penny, and the penny tells us that we'll start with the owner of the Suns and then bonus coverage, back-to-back and belly-to-belly, or depending on whatever position they were in, we will talk about the scandal involving the Boston Celtics coach. But we'll begin in the Valley of the Sun, and a story that we've been following for some time, off and on, and it has now reached its crescendo. And maybe you know about this or not, but the owner, let me get you caught up if you don't, the owner, Rober Sarver, of the basketball team there in Arizona, who over the last couple of weeks, last couple of months, there was an investigation, and he ends up getting tarred and feathered as a result of said investigation, that he did some things he wasn't supposed to do at the office, workplace conduct. He said some words you can't say unless you're in a rap song or something like that. And so he has begun the process of selling the Phoenix Suns, and I always like how these news reports say, and the Phoenix Mercury. I'm sure there are people dying to get their hands on the Mercury of the WNBA, unless they're not. But it's all about the Suns here in our little world. That's where we play the hits, my man, play the hits. And that would be the NBA team. So Sarver issued a prepared statement on his way out. He hasn't sold the team yet. Takes a long time. You've got to get banks involved, lawyers involved, and all of that to cross the T's and dot the I's. So Sarver issues this statement saying, among other things, he believes in atonement and a path to forgiveness. He stated he expected the commissioner's 1-year suspension, he says, to provide time to focus, to make amends, and remove the controversy. Now, the statement continues here. This is what we call in the business the money quote. Sarver said, he said the following here. Sarver said, quote, "But in our current unforgiving climate, it has become painfully clear," he stated, "that it is no longer possible," talking about atonement and forgiveness, which, of course, been this way for years. I guess he just got the memo. Anyway, whatever good he says he could have done or could still do is outweighed by things he has said in the past, and he went blah, 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 blah on that. So that's the key part of it. So let us discuss the question. How was the NBA able to convince, in air quotes, Rober Sarver to sell his basketball team? So my thoughts on this, you've got Surgical, Pizzeria, and Blueprint. And we're going to tie all of these things together, and we are going to make a really, really shady robber baron is what we're going to make. And there's a lot of shady rich dudes who own sports teams. Now, let's start with the commissioner, the man that looks like he's from another planet somewhere outside our galaxy, Adam Silver. Adam Silver didn't have the rule of law on his side. The NBA bylaws did not allow him initially to force Rober Sarver to sell the team. There was that embarrassing suspension, and Silver came out and hemmed and hawed with the media. There wasn't enough meat on the bone to force Rober Sarver to unload the Suns at that time. So, what has happened since then? The NBA decided to go to the underworld. They put a full-court press on Sarver. He was bombarded from all sides. And Adam Silver, that sneaky little devil, helped facilitate this covert operation. It was a surgical takedown, sensory overload, overwhelming, everything, touch, sight, hearing, smell, taste, all of it. You had big shots at the NBA ripping Sarver, executives. Lots of bad press up the wazoo. Big names, LeBron James, Chris Paul, and other woke NBA players who do not believe in atonement and forgiveness. And the biggest ace in the hole, the corporate partners. When the corporate partners like PayPal start jumping overboard like rats off a sinking ship, it's turn out the lights, the party's over. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. The sun has set in Arizona. Now, part B, who is going to step up and buy the Suns? Well, the usual suspects are out there. It is a pizzeria. It's a pizzeria. It's serving up thick crust, as in the upper crust. The one percenters are Oh, they're everywhere, right? Lots of bubbles oozing with dough. Sports teams, we've learned this over the years. Sports teams are like fine art. It's like fine art. It is a status symbol. You get to brag to your friends at cocktail parties in the Hamptons and South Beach and other wonderful locations there about owning a team, and you can schmooze with other heavyweights, and you have this great conversation start. If you're the COO of a tech company that does the inner workings of the internet, that's not really a great conversation starter. But if you own an NBA team, well, now, come on. Floodgates open up. And so the aristocrats are forming a line around the building. And these teams, they do not become available that often. Rare and appropriate. And so you have a blank check in terms of money. The blue blood sports leagues, if you're ever able to get enough money to buy a team in a legacy sports league, we highly recommend it. If you've played Wall Street or real estate, you know that you can lose a lot of money doing that, the whole capital gains tax and all that. But buying a sports team professionally, one of the big sports leagues, is one of the few luxury items that you can invest in where you are guaranteed to make money year after year. They don't lose money. Sometimes they don't make as much as they expect, but they don't lose money. And the big payout is when you sell the team. So among the aristocrats being tossed around the echo chamber, Bob Iger, who was the big shot with the Mickey Mouse boys over there at Disney. So you've got that. Larry Ellison of Oracle fame. Steve Jobs' widow, Steve Jobs' his wife, who is, I guess, an owner in part of the Wizards, and Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, who's no longer allegedly the head of Amazon. But how about Artie Moreno, the soon-to-be ex-Angels owner? He's from Arizona. He went to the University of Arizona. He could sell the Halos and then turn around and reinvest that money in an NBA team. Now, he was a terrible baseball owner, but if he's got the money, the NBA would gladly sell him the basketball team from Phoenix. But it doesn't really matter. Whoever gets the deed to the Suns will be paying a pretty penny. Rober Sarver can drown his sorrows on his way out, exit stage right. He can drown his sorrows in a whole bunch of dead presidents, right? He paid $401 million. It's a lot of money in 2004 to buy the Phoenix basketball team. Now, financial gurus tell us that the Suns are going to fetch north of $2 billion when the deal is finally done. Talk about punishment. You're no longer allowed to hang out with the other socialites at basketball games. You're not one of the cool kids. So here's a check for $1 gazillion. A nice, what is that, 400% return on investment at least? And it's possible that the Suns sell for even more than $2 billion. All right, last word here. So will this lead now to other owners kind of walking slowly and tiptoeing around? Will this lead to other owners being forcefully removed from their professional sports league? So the answer to this is it's complicated. You have to go on a case-by-case basis. The NBA has laid out a blueprint. Will other sports leagues become the alter ego there and take a page out of that? Will they take the blueprint and run with it? The big one here is the NFL. And many people are like, well, what about Dan Snyder? How about Dan Snyder? And he's been a thorn in the side of the Washington football team fan base for decades there. There's a lot of dirt, a lot of dust clouds around Dan Snyder. But my gut tells me that there are not enough votes on both sides of the aisle to have Dan Snyder get the NBA package of removal. Basketball used a multi-pronged attack. As we mentioned, executives, star players, corporate partners. The NFL had a hullabaloo a couple years ago with corporate partners bailing on the team that was known as the Redskins. So instead of forcing Snyder to sell the team, they just allowed a name change to pacify the wokesters in corporate America. But Dan Snyder kept the team, but there was no real pushback from any other big executives at the NFL. And certainly, as I remember, no star players in the NFL said that Dan Snyder should have to sell the team. Roger Goodell has been unwilling to attack his bosses. And Adam Silver, whether you agree with what he did or not, that is the third rail, my man, because these commissioners are beholden to the owners. They're the ones that control the commissioner. The boss for Roger Goodell, the owner. And with shrapnel coming in from all sides, you have to be willing to throw that shrapnel around at the owners. NFL players, generally speaking, are not as rambunctious when it comes to giving decrees on owners selling teams or being forced out as their NBA counterparts. And LeBron James, we know he's got a hot take on everything, of course, outside of China, Nike sweatshops, and a few other pieces of hypocrisy. But that's a different story for another day. It is a great night for the scandal. We began ranting about the Suns owner being forced out, and now we turn to a developing story. As Fox Sports Radio learning within the last couple hours here that the head coach of the Boston Celtics has a whole lot of explaining to do. And it appears the Celtics will have a different head coach, at least for part of the upcoming NBA season. What is this all about? Have you been in a closet somewhere? Ime Udoka, who was the darling of the NBA as a coach in Boston last year. The Celtics getting all the way to the NBA Finals and making Golden State work a little bit when they got to the NBA Finals. And there was a story that came out not that long before we came on the radio here that claimed that Ime Udoka was going to be punished. And there were very vague details on what exactly he had done, something inappropriate at work, and he was facing a significant suspension. And then some new details came out. There was an improper consensual relationship between Ime Udoka and one of his underlings. And more details have come out as we have continued on here through the overnight. And according to Shams, he tells us that the Celtics head coach did have, he was making whoopee. He let the snake out of the cage there with a female member of the team staff.
Deshaun Watson situation you're saying here.
Well, no, this was not. Deshaun did not have permission to go to Pound Town. Apparently, Ime Udoka was allowed to stoop in this particular case, and apparently he did. It was a long-term relationship. So here's some of the information. All the story says is a female staffer. So immediately, the first thing is everyone's like, well, who is it? Who's this woman? So now, I'm not going to name the woman, but as far as I know, and from what I've been able to track down here, the number of women that are on the Celtics staff is one. So using the MALLER process of elimination, I don't believe it's difficult to get to the bottom of who this young lady is. So there's that element to it. And then there's also the fact that there's a very public relationship. Ime Udoka, you heard about it a lot if you watched the NBA Finals last year. They love, on the TV broadcast, they love to tell stories about personal life, relationships, family, and all that. And it happens that the Boston Celtics head coach was in a somewhat high-profile relationship with a Hollywood starlet. And so people are like, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? Well, now there's a story coming out that we're hearing that the relationship had ended and Ime was on the prowl. If you believe the latest reporting here that's bouncing around, that he was on the market and he decided to go shopping for some love in the building there. And so Nia Long is the woman who, I guess they were never actually married. They were in a relationship for a good amount of time. I think they were engaged, but I guess they never got married. Of course, who knows these days what's real and what's not. The other factor here is there has to be more to the story. Like, we're getting some of it, but if Ime Udoka was not in the relationship, if that report is accurate, that he was available, and this was a consensual thing. Now, I know you're not supposed to have office romance and all that, but does that warrant this level of punishment? Meaning there are some, including Woj and others, that are saying that he is likely going to miss most, if not all, of next NBA season. Coming off a championship, the Celtics are the betting favorites to win the Eastern Conference, and depending on which sports book you look at, to win the NBA
That's
championship.
excessive.
Yeah, it seems,
there had to be something was happening in his office.
Something else, right?
Yeah.
Something. I mean, I agree with you, Roberto. There's got to be more to the story that we don't know about. I don't know if it involves, props or animals, or I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just in my head. I just do not see a scenario where the information that we have that this is just an affair, which was, I guess, not an affair because if he wasn't married at the time and he was separated and the relationship with Nia Long had ended, then it's inappropriate, and there are workplace rules and stuff.
An Oval Office situation, maybe?
You think it might have been that, Roberto? You think there might be? You think they went out to the parquet floor there at the Garden, and right there on the logo, the Shamrock logo, they rolled around a little bit? You think they did that?
That might have been it.
Could be it, right?
Giggity, 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 giggity.
Man. So we'll find out more details on this, but rock hard some of the latest. Well, does he blew me off. Does he continue, though, Ime Udoka? Is this such is it embarrassing? I'm trying to figure out, because some dudes will be like, this is great, man. I mean, come on. This guy was hooking up, making whoopee with one of his underlings. This guy's like the greatest stud in the world. And other people are going to be like, oh, my God. The players can't respect him.
They got caught in the act.
And I guzzled that sucker down every night.
You think there might be a little video clip? Or
Yeah.
I swallowed.
Well, there is a liability problem, right? I think the main problem is that if this is someone underneath Ime Udoka, the Celtics coach, then the argument for the Celtics is this is a financial liability because she could then sue, and who knows, maybe she is going to sue. I don't know. They said it was consensual and all that, but that would be the thing, a consensual, intimate relationship with a female member when, according to what I found on the internet, there's only one, so we now you can Google that yourself and find out who this person is, but man, what a story. This is a good day for the scandal.